Now, if you want to see a real-world example of somebody that would be targeted by our government, if they had the ability to do so, and sometimes they do, it's Mark Harrington from Created Equal, and he joins us now from Ohio. Hello, Mark.
How you doing, Mark?
Fine, sir. How are you doing?
Great.
We've been talking here about, we dodged a bullet when Hillary Clinton didn't win, because I think she would have set out immediately to use the Justice Department to basically make it be illegal to be pro-life. I think that would have been on her agenda right off the bat. And as someone who's out there really on the front lines doing some really great things right now, you see this on a lower level with your Created Equal project, where you go on these campuses and stand in front of schools and show the horrible realities of abortion. And we saw a video recently. You were at a school, a high school. Was that in Fort Wayne, Indiana?
That's correct.
And the school principal came out and tried to intimidate you and throw you off a public sidewalk. And, I mean, he's just lying through his teeth. He's saying this is school property, which it's not. It's a public sidewalk. What's going on with that situation?
Well, our students went out, and, he talked about he was there to shield or protect his students. He called them his kids, and this was his property. And what he did is he actually took one of the signs and threw the sign out into the street, threatened one of our students with physical harm if he kept videotaping him. He was aggressive. He was rude. But when it all came down to it, thankfully, the police intervened and said that we had the right to be on the public sidewalk. But after that, we have sent a letter. The Thomas More Society out of Chicago, our pro bono attorney organization, has sent a letter to the school district, basically a demand letter threatening them if they do not apologize, a written apology to the students, and assure our students that they will protect their rights to the First Amendment, that they will be ending up in court. And we have not heard back from them as of yet, but we're hoping to hear something very soon.
I follow what you're doing because I think it's one of the better things that's going on in the pro-life movement right now. And I see this as kind of a consistent theme everywhere you go. You seem to draw this kind of fire. I was making the point earlier that we have the First Amendment in the United States, and somebody like Hillary Clinton would probably defend herself by saying, oh, well, we would never do that because it'd be in violation of the First Amendment. But they're openly, but you have elected officials all over the country that are openly willing to violate the First Amendment. We've seen this time and time and time again against pro-lifers, and not do the same thing against pro-aborts. I mean, you see these school districts where they'll allow a pro-abortion group to be created on the school property, but not a pro-life group. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen this time and time again, and all you would have to do to shut you down would be to have a Justice Department memo come out saying that what you're doing is hate speech. And they'd be able to shut you down in a heartbeat, and then all of a sudden you'd have federal marshals out there hauling you off.
That's exactly right, Mark. In the aftermath of the 2016 election, I think we've all watched this epidemic around the country on college and high school campuses where administrators they're implementing what they call safe zones or trigger warnings, and administrators are coddling students. They facilitated walkouts, and they said it's okay for students to skip classes because Donald Trump won the election. I mean, they were creating cry rooms. I mean, believe it or not, on college campuses, they created cry rooms where they staffed the cry rooms. They gave the students puppies and coloring books in order to cope.
And Play-Doh.
Yeah, it's absurd. I mean, we are shielding these students. We're not preparing them for the real world. It does them a disservice. This is what's happening on high school and college campuses across the country. Listen, if students are old enough to have an abortion, they're old enough to see one, and we shouldn't have the government intervening to decide what students should and shouldn't see. That's not the role of this government.
Well, I hear these stories about they're creating, like I said, these cry rooms and safe zones and all this stuff for these little campus cupcakes. Mm-hmm. And they're bringing puppies in, and they're doing pet therapy, and they're doing scream therapy, and they're doing all these bizarre things, and coloring books and Play-Doh and all this. And I'm thinking, let's say you've got a 21-year-old boy on a campus, and he's going through all this, right? He's doing these things. He's going into the cry room, and he's playing with Play-Doh and coloring books and all this. In the 1940s, you had boys that age storming the beaches at Normandy, right?
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Is that where we've come? In a couple of generations? We've come from a couple of generations where 20 and 21-year-old boys stormed the beaches at Normandy going up against the Nazis. And now these 20 and 21-year-old boys are having to have pet therapy and coloring books and Play-Doh.
I don't know about you, but I would never want a husband to have those characteristics.
You wouldn't marry a guy like that.
I would no.
I think there's a larger issue here. What are we creating? And what are we doing to our culture through the next generation? We have dumbed them down so much and so that the very liberties and the very principles that our country is built upon will have no advocates.
No.
We'll have no advocates.
But what kind of, I'm going to go back to what Renee just said. First off, what kind of woman wants a man like that for a husband?
Hillary?
You can't.
Exactly.
But you can't count on a guy like that.
No.
You can't count on a guy like that for anything.
Right.
And who would want this guy? I mean, this goes beyond just the mama's boy deal. This is way beyond
And that's bad.
And that's bad enough.
Right.
But
feminizing.
You wouldn't have married your husband had he been one of these kind of people.
No.
You wouldn't have married him.
No.
And that doesn't mean that every guy has to be some swaggering macho type that's threatening people and, getting in fights. But he needs to act like a man. You can't act like a man if you're a male on a college campus and you're having to have a coloring book because somebody you didn't like was elected president.
Right.
Or a puppy.
Are you seeing these people as you go out there, Mark?
No question about it. And our remedy to disturbing speech, which is what, admittedly what we're doing is disturbing. These pictures are disturbing. But the answer is not to shut down speech. The answer is more speech, not less. And that's the problem. The government feels like it has the responsibility or obligation to shield these young people from difficult subjects. It's just doing them a disservice when they go out into the real world, and it's hurting our republic. I mean, that's the bottom line. We've got to have free speech in order to have social reform. So thankfully, we have the Thomas More Society and other pro bono law firms that will go to bat for us and defend our rights in court if necessary. This is a teachable moment for everybody in Fort Wayne. I mean, hopefully, we're going to hear back very quickly that the school district is going to apologize for what they've done. But you don't know. I mean, they could double down on this stuff. I mean, it's just crazy what's happening with political correctness today.
Is anybody...
They don't have the audacity to reverse the First Amendment, but they want to put in these speech codes and safe zones and trigger warnings and erode free speech. That's what's going on, and that needs to be fought.
Yeah, it's really mind-boggling when you think about it. When you think that, like I said, these campus cupcakes that they're creating, if they think that they're going to get coddled like that once their college career is over and they get thrown out into the real world, they're in for a rude awakening.
Very much so.
But they're not going to be equipped to compete in that environment. There's no way.
Or to defend this nation.
No.
That's the thing that's disturbing to me, is that we're raising a generation of snowflakes
Right.
that will not stand up and resist tyranny.
Right.
Mark, the other thing that's very disturbing is that students are being taught that violence and vandalism and force, destroying people's property is an acceptable way to dissent or disagree with someone. And it came down from the top. I mean, it came from the White House when President Obama stood back and let riots happen across the country. That's what students are being taught, and we're seeing it play out on college and high school campuses.
That's right.
Well, I love what y'all are doing, Mark. I think images are powerful. I know you get some blowback from pro-lifers, but
No.
you guys are doing a great job.
That's exactly right. And don't listen to those voices. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, we appreciate that. In fact, we just released another video today. It seems almost, Mark, every time we go out, we are attacked now.
Sure.
Things are changing in the culture.
Yep.
It's very dangerous now to be a pro-lifer and to stand up for the rights of the preborn in the public square. We have to equip ourselves to defend ourselves, make sure we get everything on video. We just released a video this morning of an attack that took place on an overpass in Columbus. this is becoming commonplace in America, unfortunately.
Well, listen, Mark, I'm sure you probably never saw it, but in 1986, I wrote a book called Firestorm, a little small pamphlet basically about the future of the pro-life movement as I saw it in 1986. And one of the things that I said in there is that the closer we get to winning, the more violent the other side will become.
No doubt.
And I've been saying that here on LifeTalk since 1999. One of the first shows we did, I had a segment on that very issue. And we continue to see that. Mm-hmm. If they didn't think we were winning, they'd be ignoring us. So I guess what I'm encouraging you to understand is that when you see that, don't look at that as a negative towards you. Look at that as a positive, because if they didn't see you as a threat, they'd be totally ignoring you.
No, we totally understand that if we're over the target, we're going to take direct fire.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, thanks for joining us, Mark. We appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless you guys.
And you don't lose heart. Just stay after the fight.
We'll do that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.